Hi, everyone. Welcome to the October Community Hangout. We have a few show and tell items today, starting with our own Marco. Reminder that in the future, if you've got something you want to show or something that you want to see, there are discourse threads in our discuss.openedx.org forum where we can talk about the upcoming agenda. Some of the things that are in the agenda today are there just because I saw people talking about them in discourse, and I thought they'd be great things to show live to the community. So we're seeing them here today. Let's get started with Marco. Let me see if that's what's on the agenda. There you go, Marco.
Looks like I'm sharing the screen.
I just do want to point out that my shirt in the background do match the website. So
that's the important part.
That's the important part.
Hopefully, I don't know if the volume is on our machine such that if someone spoke, we would hear it. Someone might, okay. Someone mind saying something back to us to make sure we can hear you?
Anyone? Giovanni, say
Oh, hey, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Great, just want to make sure, otherwise I think it's happened before that I just sort of verbally steamroll everyone else and people don't know why. Great, all right, so we're resolved there. So one of the things I wanted to call out that we talked about briefly last time that I wanted to share an update on was working on sort of improving the way we define what the platform is, so a shared definition of the what. So we went through this exercise and sort of, with help from some folks outside the building, have some visualizations that are present on the open.edX, open.edx.org site. But this is sort of honestly more of a at a glance, like, oh, they have an LMS, they have an authoring environment, there's administration, there's data. But we're looking for something that's a little bit more oriented towards the details about what the platform actually is and includes, with the goal of helping us all be able to talk about the same areas of the platform, potentially organize better sort of group conversations, have better discussions about the future of each sort of sub area of the platform. So we've been calling that the sort of Open edX Platform Map. And you can see we're not really at a V1. What I'm sharing is really early thoughts on this. And the language right now is oriented towards people inside the building on edX.org. So even though it's meant to use language for people outside the building, it's still internally focused for now. But like I said, still want to sort of share the early work. So great. So what I'm skipping here for the sake of brevity is talking about the goals, organizing principles, and our T&L focus, teaching and learning focus for this map to start. I already briefly mentioned sort of the shared conversations and shared definition of what the platform is. We can definitely go back to the organizing principles if that's helpful, but for now I'm just going to sort of treat this as a little mini demo. So the idea behind the platform map is that it is a tree, and at each level, each platform area can have details, context, descriptions, and other things that would make work at that level of the platform easier to understand and discuss. So at the highest level, this is what we're calling level 0, we have these 3 sentences that I'm just going to read. A modern, extensible, and open source learning platform designed to support course, program, and degree learning environments on edX.org. Open edX is anchored by a flexible and reusable content authoring engine, a research-grade learning data pipeline, and site administrator and operator tools to support a wide range of learning use cases. Finally, the platform is built and delivered using scalable and robust infrastructure that supports some of the largest learning destination sites all around the globe, in addition to edX.org. So these 3 sentences, is that 3 or 2? Yeah, that is 3, great. Are meant to span what are considered the top 5, or the 5 level 1 areas of the platform. The platform is composed of learner experiences, educator experiences, administrator experiences. Data and analytics is called out as its own separate concept, and then site delivery and infrastructure. And so this is the first idea that at each level of the map, there's 3 to 7 of these items that fully kind of is describable in a couple of short sentences. I'm going to dive into one of them, learner experiences, for a little bit to show what other kinds of things you might want to do at each platform area. So this is an example template of a platform area view or document. You might be able to describe the 3 to 7 areas within this if it's not a lowest level of the platform. That 1 to 3 sentence description that you saw above for level 0, you would also repeat for this level. And then one way we thought that we might capture, instead of like describing like the full vision or where we're going for each of them, one place to start would be to articulate the principles at play. So the 3 to 5 principles and values that define that effort of the platform. In the future, there will obviously be more interesting things than just this, but we just wanted to start somewhere. There's other things that you could imagine also sort of just rolling up at each level of the platform. So we have a list of about 257 Jira platform components. That's how we track where different bug reports and other things come from. And so, being able to convey the rough size of this part of the platform, even though number of components they're not all equally sized. So it's kind of a proxy for size. That's a valuable way of sort of articulating how big learner experiences is, for example. That's a fake number, just to be clear, that's not real. But you might also just be able to describe or quantify sort of our operational maturity for this part of the platform. Basically how sustainably sort of updated and what's the platform health basically for this area of the component. Are we on the latest builds and versions of all the things we need to be, et cetera. A T&L scorecard, like how do we rate ourselves and how would we come up with that measure on sort of, are we on track, behind, or ahead for this part of the platform? Trying to be brutally honest and trying to find areas of biggest gap through measures like this. And then finally, like who's covering it, who's overseeing and driving progress on this, so it's not all centralized, especially when we talk to the external community. And so just for the sake of one like fleshed out level 1 example, this is that down here. So you see the 3 to 5 or 3 to 7 levels or items within learner experience: identity and account tools, content discovery, learning dashboards, course experience, credentials, and program experience. And then we put some sort of principles at play and then a description as well that I won't read for now. But again, the sentences here are meant to try and span these items as best they can in limited words. So this first thing that I'm showing is really just the idea of the tree, the notion that each level of the tree can have documents and templates and things that we can then sort of organize conversation around. But what I wanted to show a little bit more depth beyond just this. So if I were to say, this is the platform map, these are the 5 areas, and this is showing level 1, those 5 level 1s, and then level 2 in pink. So this might not be the most readable thing right now in this state, but you'll notice like we went through this exercise, but we were really focused on teaching and learning. That's why this is prefixed with T&L. So in the brainstorming, we identified a bunch of other things that are administration experiences, data and analytics, like delivery infrastructure. And we haven't really fleshed out those 3 on the right. So this is not a complete map. And in fact, the next slide, I'm just going to focus in on the learner and educator, and we're going to zoom in a little bit. But I mentioned earlier that the language of this version of the map is a little bit internal focused on edX.org. You'll notice, for example, on administrator experiences, we included Open edX ecosystem as a thing that we do. And that includes moderating, managing, supporting things like discourse or our pull request workflow and other things. Those are administrator operator experiences for edX.org. But if we were to sort of generate a version of this that that was for Open edX, like the content marketing tools or the Open edX ecosystem or some of these other details, especially some of the infrastructure ones, may differ. But again, we're trying to sort of find something that that works for us, and then once we find value, sort of finding the version of that also works for everyone. But I'm going to skip this because, like I said, those three on the right we really didn't spend too much time on. I'm going to limit to just learner and educator, sort of giving you a little bit of an increase in readability here. And then what I want to show is basically the more we worked on this effort, the more we felt like unless you get to a fully clickable and interactive map that you can sort of navigate yourself fully, any visual that we output is going to have some sort of bias is the wrong word, but some subjectivity in what level of the platform we're emphasizing and what area we're not, right? So as an example for this, what I'm going to show is the next level down and show you how we think of this map as more of a toolkit that we could use to better, create visuals for various projects we're working on to get everyone to be aware of what the project is and how it works. But like I said, it's possible that in the future we could get to a fully clickable and interactive version of this that's live on the Open edX site. But getting ahead of myself a little bit. But so this is an example of one possible view for the learner experience. And I'm going to call out a couple things about this one. So I've made an editorial judgment call. That's where that subjectivity and bias comes in, to say 5 of these level 2 items in pink, this top row, that's enough information for now to sort of cover and communicate visually to someone what it is that is in that part of the platform. But because we're turning our attention at edX.org to the course experience for parts of the teams, I chose to expand this level down. And the course experience is 4 things: the primary content experience, learning apps that support individual learners, learning apps that support the peers and community, and then off-platform engagement messaging. And so in this case, I'm making the decision to show level 1, level 2 for course experience, level 3, and level 4 for the learner experience. So that's as deep as the map goes right now. We don't have anything that's deeper than level 4, although other parts of the platform are just level 3. I have just a little bit more to show. This is another example for the educator experience. So you can ignore the course authoring experience, but imagine that whatever is in there would fit that rough sort of size. What I want to call attention to is the content blocks and interactives. And you notice sort of a different judgment call here of expanding 3 of the 4 areas and then just making this 4th area larger, but not providing detail. So the volume of X blocks is in this 4th category, but at least in our experience, they wind up being the long tail of usage. And so, in our catalog, at least on edX.org, fewer than 3% of courses use the things that are in this block or category. But again, that's a judgment call, so you could imagine instead doing something like this, which slightly better conveys that there's a lot of things going on in this 4th category, even though at the bottom it just says many, many other blocks, which isn't exactly a representation of size, but sort of a little bit better than the previous version.
Many is pretty quantitative.
I suppose, yeah. And then the final example, just again to show all these sort of variations, is it's possible that actually just conveying this level 3 within content blocks and interactives is really enough to get across the picture for someone who's new to the platform. And really, we should spend our time describing the course authoring experience to start by default. So, like I said, a lot of different choices within this map. We're still working on the tree and how it's going to work for us. And I think we'll be able to have another update in the next community hangout. But I know I did this as a full long sort of like diatribe, but can open it up now for questions, comments. There might be some that are already in the chat.
There's one in the chat.
Okay, so I closed the chat. There it is. Let's see. Nate's realizes initially more focused internally on the edX audience, but for wider distribution, it seems very edX.org centric. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, some of the categories, the platform areas themselves, like that Open edX ecosystem or our content marketing tools, are very much edX.org centric. But we hope that, especially for the T&L side of things, once you're in this area, that a lot more of it is open. Go ahead, Nate.
Yep. Were there other aspects that seemed edX specific to you, Nate, than what Marco just mentioned?
No, it's just the very first sentence is describing Open edX within the context of edX.org,
Right.
which is obviously true. But if the intent of this is to build a wider audience, maybe the language could be less edX.org centric and more talking about how Open edX is used, for lots of different types of scenarios, lots of different types of use cases.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. Even that third sentence sort of calls out that reality, but it's obviously structured as a secondary thing it's in addition to edX.org, right? Like that's absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, I think
that's kind of that's what I was getting at. It's sort of like, yeah, this is for edX.org. Oh, and there's these other things as well. It's kind of like the other Open edX sites are kind of playing second fiddle to the edX.org site in this current description that you have.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely right. And that's something that we would update, and all those again, external versions of all this would be that. I don't know how essential it is to have internal edX specific language. I just took a pass at that, sort of trying to orient it towards that. But it may be that eventually we just use the external language and that just works for us as well.
Yeah, I really like the way you've broken this down into different, it's sort of like role-based, right? You have learners, educators, administrators. I think that really helps to kind of focus which audience you're talking to and what they care about, like what are the things that are important to them. I'm curious if you've thought about using the jobs to be done framework for helping people to kind of see how the different components kind of all come together to provide, to deliver a particular solution. And I'll give you an example. So we have a customer that is trying to deliver high stakes certifications on the platform. And so they're making use of lots of different capabilities that in this current representation of the Open edX platform would probably be stuck into different buckets. But it's a combination of those things that are really providing the solution. The final solution is based on several components like timed exams, subsection gating, credentials, certificates, right? So if I'm looking at the Open edX platform for the first time and I'm trying to figure out, can I deliver high stakes certification, to my partners or my customers or whatever, where would I go in this diagram to determine whether that's even a possibility? Does it have the core components?
Right. No, I think that's
right. So a jobs to be done, like a jobs to be done framework would be like, as a commercial entity, I want to be able to deliver high stakes certifications, and then it would kind of point you to the different pieces that you would need to assemble to deliver that final solution.
Right.
Does that make sense?
I think it's a good call out. I think there's certainly some ways that this would be able to make those conversations easier. But I suspect that this is why I mentioned earlier that when we talk about projects, it might be that the map is a visual reference, but not like, it won't always be the case that working on an initiative just like one platform area, right? Like to your point, like if you were working on like credit grade and integrity sort of aware sort of learning environments, not only would you sort of be looking at things like this, special exams for proctoring and timed exams, but you also might be looking at like credentials and augmenting it with like blockchain backed things. You might be looking at identity verification, which currently is considered a learner identity block, right? So lots of different ways to carve out projects. I think we'll certainly keep in mind that sort of like, are there ways to use the jobs to be done language and framing for each of the different platform areas as a sort of way of forcing that 1 to 3 sentence summaries? That might actually be simpler for all the other components. But I do expect in some cases that conveying the work that you want to do might be a stitching of several areas together. I don't know if that resonates or if that makes sense, but.
Right, and I think we know already that something as complex as Open edX isn't going to have just one hierarchical diagram that's going to serve all the purposes. So I could easily envision this tree diagram being the basis for a subsequent set of diagrams that say, oh, if you're doing high stakes certifications, then look at all these lit up areas of the tree. That's the thing you're going to have to focus on, or something like that, right? There's
Yeah.
dimensions.
Right. Yeah, I can imagine like another tab that would, or another section of this document that's sort of, you know, JTB, jobs to be done. And then I like your idea, Ned, of like, if you clicked on a job to be done, then it would highlight, you know, like they would flash, they would light up the different sections
right.
On this diagram to kind of show you, oh, you need to piece this business.
I think one of the things we were hoping to get out of this map is a common vocabulary, even just to have those further conversations. This is almost a table of contents of every other conversation about the capabilities of the platform, or where work is going to be done, or what areas a certain proposal is going to touch, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. Any other thoughts or comments about what Marco showed? No?
Great. Well, thanks everyone. And if you have other thoughts, feel free to send them my way on Slack or on Discourse, wherever works. I'll hopefully have an update next time around.
Right. Now, we were next on the agenda was Giovanni. Giovanni, you ready to show us your simple theming? This is something.
Sure.
This is something that I picked up out of Discourse and thought would be a great thing to show.
So, just a second.
Tell us.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Okay. So, hi everyone. I'm Giovanni from OpenCraft, and I'm here with Guru Prasad to present about simple theming improvements. And we're from OpenCraft. So before we start, I'll make this, later on after this presentation, I'll make these slides available and leave a link for a sandbox so you can play around with the theming. So how does theming work in the platform right now? For starters, we have the OpenEDX default theme that is a simple interface with light colors, and there's no available customization settings directly on the site. It works for OpenEDX use case, but that doesn't work for other operators that have different colors or styles or branding. But we do have a few theming systems to address that. So just a second here. We have the comprehensive theming. We have the Stanford style theming, and we also have a few Ansible roles to complement that. So just on the topic of the platform default theming, as you can see, it has edX colors, edX logo, and it fits the website as it currently is, and it's mainly used by the vanilla OpenEDX users, and that's it. So this is the additional theming tools that we have to implement to improve the theming on the platform and apply some branding. And I'm gonna talk a little bit about the simple theme role. It's an Ansible role that we introduced a while back to enable customizing the OpenEDX platform and apply a few SASS customizations to enable easy branding. So for some of you that are not very technical, these are what are SASS variables. They are a few simple variables that enables us to set a lot of colors in the platform. And this is what it looks like on the configuration file. So on the right side, you can see how it looks on the configuration. And then on the left side, how these variables are applied. So take note here that I set a link color and a few button colors for a demonstration on the next few slides. So when simply changing these variables, we have a few issues. So using the row and applying the variables to the platform, we get this. So as you can see, we have a few theming issues here. So we set link color, but not all links on the page, like these links on the bottom, have the link color, and the buttons don't have a consistent styling. And on the signing page, you can see that as well. The buttons don't have the colors that we set, and the text is still using the default OpenEDX blue. So going forward, we go to the course user dashboard. The theming looks a little better now because it uses a single theming technology here, but the footer links are still not using the color that we set earlier. And if we go to the courseware, the course page, we get this completely unthemed page. And this is happening because the platform was built with many different styling and theming technologies, and classes or CSS classes are not consistently applied to elements with the same characteristics. So some pages don't even have any theming applied when you set those main variables like courseware, wiki, and the main course page, as you can see here. So that happens because the theme palette that was chosen for Open edX platform has primary, secondary, and has a lot of colors set, but it's not very clear how to use them, and they are not used everywhere. So as you can see on the example here, it's a little bit of code, but we have a button that has hard-coded colors. So we changing any of those colors on the palette doesn't change the button. So it's very hard to customize things like that. So to fix that, we created a skeleton theme that Guru Prasad will talk a little bit more about. So Guru Prasad.
Hey everyone. So we at OpenCraft have been trying to solve the problem of simple theme customizations where we want to apply some colors and branding elements to a Open edX instance, and we ran into some issues. So what we made use of here is the simple underscore theme role in the configuration repository, which allows specifying some SASS variables in Ansible configuration and using that to deploy an instance which has some branding applied. That role also supports using a skeleton theme, which has some built-in CSS, which will be automatically loaded, not just CSS, but also SASS. And what we've done in the skeleton theme is to do some normalization of the styling, wherein when you try to set a variable, SASS variable for some color, we write some additional SASS in the skeleton theme to ensure that the styling is applied uniformly across the bootstrap pages and the non-bootstrap pages. This is an issue because there are some pages which have been ported to bootstrap, like the courseware pages, the discussion pages, and a few other pages which don't have that. And in addition to that, we found that the existing SASS variables in the platform are not really sufficient to customize very specific elements. For example, if I want to customize the look and feel of the login and register button on the home page, it looks like changing the primary, secondary, and inverted color palette of the theme doesn't work. So we've added some additional SASS variables in the simple theme skeleton to be able to go ahead and customize specific elements of the page. The full list of the available variables that we have implemented for our use case is in the link listed in the slide. And the advantage here is that all these customizations can be applied with a simple theme Ansible role. No additional custom code is required at all. So on GitHub, you can check out the changes that we worked on. It's github.com/opencraft/edX simple theme, and the branches simple theme improvements. The existing implementation of the simple theme role doesn't exactly work well with the simple theme enhancements that we've made. So there is also an open configuration PR to add some additional changes that are needed for that. Can you switch to the next slide? So while we are doing this, one thing that we've noticed is that a lot of SASS code and CSS code that we've written in the skeleton theme is basically repeating the same selectors and similar CSS properties that are already present in the vanilla theme. And what we end up doing is we end up duplicating a lot of SASS code selectors and other things. And we have a proposal open on the discourse forum to discuss an approach with the edX and community to get some of these changes upstream and implemented in such a way that it benefits everyone. Can you go to the next slide? So here are some of the things that we really are looking to improve. So for example, there is a color palette, but it's not consistently used throughout the platform, and it's not obvious which color is applied and which color has to be applied. So So the link to the discussion on the Discuss instance is linked below. And we would also like to define some standards for the application of colors and some basic theming and customizations. Over to Giovanni.
Okay, so without all that said, I'll do a quick demo of how our theming or improved simple theming works with the fixes around the inconsistent theming on the platform. So let me just switch here. Can you see my screen here? So we choose to use a few darker colors, and here, as you can see, we have the main OpenEdX website page, and we have consistent button styling, and we have added a few variables that allow us to customize margins on the page, on the footer and header specifically, and add a few colors. And as you can see here, I added a light margin top here. And on the bottom, all the links have the same coloring. And let's go to the sign-in page. Again, all the links have consistent coloring, and the bottom has the styling applied. And the same again on the user dashboard. So I've applied all those colors, and the navigation bars, the buttons, and the menus are all consistent with the colors we set. So our proposal with this theme is to have a small amount of variables that you can use to make the entire theming more consistent and simple to use. So going over to the course list, this is the page, one of the pages that gave us a lot of work because it's styled on a different theming technology. So we put a lot of effort in standardizing everything. So all these tabs have the same style across pages, and the buttons share the same styling. And as you can see, changing between screens with different technologies, they maintain the same look and feel and the same colors on the platform. So using the main colors that we said before. So that's basically it for the demonstration. I went over the pages that needed most changes, and let me know if you want to see any other page here.
We trust you on the other pages.
Sorry?
We trust you that the other pages look good too.
Okay, and that's it for the demo. We will put up the presentation and sandbox so you can try it out and see that there's consistent styling applying to most pages. So go ahead, try and leave your comments on the discussion. And now we're open to questions.
Any questions? For Giovanni and Guru Prasad?
I just want to mention here that a lot of members in the community might have their own way of solving these problems, but we are looking to have a discussion around this to come up with a standardized way of doing these changes.
Yeah, we would love to have a standard way to do it too, that lots of people find to be the right solution and a good enough solution for them that we don't have to go deeper, or they don't have to invent their own thing. One complexity that coming down the road is that we are using a new front-end technology that we're calling micro front ends, and we are starting to talk about how they are themed, and so we want to get you involved in those conversations as soon as we can. I don't know if you've had a chance to see any of the work that Adam Butterworth and David Joy are doing on micro front ends.
Okay, so I have a master dev stack on my computer, and I'm seeing a few micro front ends and a few components, and I think it's very good, but I didn't find any theming definitions on that yet. So I guess that's probably internal as of now, but it would be nice to define a theming standard with and provide a theming technology for the community for these upcoming micro front ends.
Right, so there's no theming technology that's internal that you can't see if you're looking at the master branches of our repos. So it's still very early days in building out those technologies for that kind of capability.
One thing that I do want to mention for that is that if you have not taken a look at Paragon, we put a bunch of effort into that pattern library that we started. And that is a package that I think it bundles Bootstrap, it bundles our components. And that is, I believe, the one place where we're working to decouple the sort of theme layer. And so the idea is all these new micro front ends would be using Paragon or extending that. And so hopefully we're starting from a place that has less of the like random colors here, random variables there, all changes depending on what part of the platform you're in. So hopefully there's less deviation there. But all that being said, I think the work that you guys have done, just to continue the comment, is great because it lets all the parts of the system that are on not the new stuff be able to have a shared sort of visual experience, which is a pretty huge step forward, I think. One question that I had for you guys and also potentially others is, I'm curious if anyone has employed or if through your work you would find a way to propose some sort of either linter or checker or thing that would let us be able to sort of flag all the different areas of the platform that are like the biggest culprits of these issues, the underlying issues that your work solves. Like, is there a way for us to flag all the lines of CSS that are specifying like a hex value directly for a color, right? And like how many of those things would benefit from being just corrected at the root level to being variables, or is that a losing game in general? And should we sort of,
Yes.
So we did a lot of manual work to find out what those lines were and to correct them. So I don't think there's an automated way to do that. We just have to go looking through the platform and fixing those issues. We know that there's a lot of hard-coded stuff, and we did had to overwrite them with the teaming system. So looking at that simple team, it's a good start to fix those variables upstream.
If I can just say on that, yeah. By the way, guys, I completely understand how much work this was. We went through this a while ago, like rewriting most of the platform front end for our needs. So I would say in terms of the CSS, the biggest issues that you can find is wherever you find important or wherever you find very weird targeting, like not button, not class, not something. So these are the cases where they require, like, there are ugly situations that require very ugly solutions. So these kinds of things really need to, like, are the problematic ones there, I would say. And for the micro frontends, yeah, I wanted to add, yeah, so if I understand you correctly, Ned, so there's not currently like a system that's already devised and in place for some consistent theming through them, right? I mean, it could use Paragon in a way, but it's not still decided, right?
Well, the micro front ends do use Paragon. I am not up to speed on the themability of Paragon or even where the work stands. They are right in the middle of building out this technology. So I may know where they were last week, and they've got news that I'm not up to yet. So we're right on the cutting edge of all of that.
And we'll
because
direct those folks at edX to this recording.
Yep.
So that they can watch this and sort of get the visibility into the demo. And I'll ask them and see if they feel like they're ready to talk about a meaningful update next month, because that would be, I think, a recurring thing that would be valuable. So if not next month, then the month after that, we should be able to provide some sort of meaningful update. But even outside of that, I think there's probably channels and other threads that we could follow up between now and then. I forget if it's called front end or what it is on the OpenEdX Slack, or what other topics they're following, but we'll follow up on that.
Yeah,
we'll definitely.
Because I just wanted to say, like, React does offer, like, as a technology, it offers some really, really elegant solutions for stuff like this.
Right.
So basically, you don't even need to use SASS or anything. I mean, now with CSS modules or stuff like that, I mean, it would be easier and definitely more consistent and less prone to errors, because you could not target something by accident. So I think there is an opportunity there that could be, like, utilized very well.
Any other comments or questions about the simple theming?
So I guess with the micro front ends coming up, things are going to get a bit worse and then get better, because we will then have 3 systems to deal with. But once we start standardizing on micro front ends, it should be a lot easier.
Right. The overall goal of micro front ends is to make it easier to update the UI of different pages as a separate effort from changing edX platform. But it's also built on much more modern front-end technologies like React and all of the tools that it brings, rather than Django templates and SASS and those sorts of things.
But yeah, I mean, I think it is true that we don't have a clear path towards removal of all of the legacy things. Right now, I think we're prioritizing being able to more simply do themes one way using Paragon and React for all the new stuff. So, and only that one way will work on those micro front ends, which will make everything we have right now on edX platform increasingly the legacy sort of reality for us. But again, that's not the latest necessarily, but that's my understanding. I think there is still an Inker project or Inker epic tied to removal of pattern library 1 and some of the earlier stuff. Like I think the credential service and a bunch of other views still had it. So I think there's still progress on that front. So if you're interested in taking a look at that, I'll ask Mike Terry, developer at edX, to see where that stands. It's possible that we could help by removing some of the older stuff, but I just don't know where that stands.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Giovanni and Guru Prasad, for showing that to us. It looks like you've done an awful lot of work. You've cleaned up some of our mess, which we really appreciate. And I think other people who try out the simple theming are gonna find that it simplifies their theming efforts as well. So thanks a lot for that, and thanks for doing the presentation. I think we were going to see something from Raccoon Gang, but if I'm not mistaken, there's no one here from Raccoon Gang to show it to us, so we'll push that out to a future event. Does anyone have any open-ended questions or discussion topics they want to throw out there? If not, we'll see you next month. The next one is going to be Thursday, November 14th. We'll put up an agenda. As usual, we're interested to hear from you what it is you'd like to hear about. Things are progressing here at edX, of course, and there's stuff happening in the community, so there's plenty to talk about. I'll start a discussion thread in Discourse, and we can put ideas there about what to do at the next event. Till then, see ya.
Yeah.
Bye.